Alright, everybody, welcome back. So now that free agency has passed more, we can talk about the Leafs now. And Toronto with me is interesting because once again they're facing a lot of questions and there isn't a ton of answers. First one, how do we get under the cap? Not a lot of answers. Second one, how do we sign Matthews and Marner? Not a lot of answers. Second, do we give Nylander $10 million? Not a lot of answers. So there's a lot of questions here facing Toronto. And I want to start off with who they signed. I want to start off with who they signed this offseason and during the free agency period. They signed Dylan Gambrell to a 1-year, $775K contract. I like that a lot for Gambrell. Solid, bottom type player, the depth forward basically. He's mainly there for that. They signed Max Domi to a 1-year, $3 million deal. I like that contract as well because it gives them a grit player, a good guy who can provide some good secondary scoring. And with somebody like Alexander Kerfoot, who we'll get into in a little bit, who left, I think it's a good signing. They also signed Tyler Bertuzzi to a 1-year, $5.5 million contract. Bertuzzi is one of those players that could have a really solid year and then get paid next year. That's what I think could happen with Bertuzzi, and he's a solid grit type player, brings the grit, the physicality in some ways, and as well as that too, he's also a scorer. He can score goals. He also brought in Ryan Reaves to a 3-year, $1.35 million contract as well, which I don't think is bad, but it feels a little bit long, in my opinion. But, I mean, if they want a guy like Reaves, they had a guy like Simmons leave. He's an RFA now, or he's a UFA now. So Reaves, I would imagine, likely replaces that role of being just a fighter, there to solely fight. But yeah, Reaves, not a horrible signing, not the best in the world, but not the worst in the world. You look at the forwards that they lost. We'll compare those guys to the forwards they lost. They lost Ryan O'Reilly, Nola Chari, Alexander Kerfoot, Michael Bunting. Those are your four most notable forwards that they lost. Am I taking Bunting, Kerfoot, Achari, and O'Reilly over Gambrell, Domi, Bertuzzi, and Reaves? Absolutely. And that's why Leafs fans are saying they got better, and they really didn't, if I'm being honest with you. They really did not get better. You lost a player with so much heart in Ryan O'Reilly. You lost a player who, even though he's controversial and he can be physical, he can score in Michael Bunting. You lost a solid secondary scorer in Kerfoot and another guy in Achari, too. So I would much rather take those four guys over the new four guys they brought in. As much as I like Bertuzzi and Domi, I'm taking O'Reilly and Bunting and Kerfoot. No question. So that is why I think the Leafs lost. I think the Leafs actually got a little worse. And at first I thought, oh yeah, they're getting better. They got Bertuzzi, they got Domi, and on some level, yes, they might be built better for the playoffs. But I still think they got worse with the guys that they lost. They definitely did get worse. Let's look at the defense now, and the defense is much less severe. They brought in John Klingberg to a 1-year, $4.15 million deal. Klingberg was terrible with Anaheim, but he was actually okay with Minnesota. So Toronto bringing him in isn't the worst idea in the world, but we'll see how that happens. And then they also signed Maxime Lajoie to a 1-year, $775K deal as well, which is not bad. So yeah, overall, the guys they lost on that blue line were Hall, Shen, and Gustafsson. Gustafsson, you can shoot to the moon. I hate Gustafsson. Hall, he's not good in Toronto. He was not good in Toronto at all. Overpaid by Detroit. And then as well as that too, Shen I thought was a solid defensive defender who they lost to Nashville. So it's not as severe, but it still is not very good. And that's why I think they got worse. They lost a significant amount of players that were actually pretty key in helping him get past Tampa in that first round series. Ryan O'Reilly being the prime one, and that's why I think that they're going to be probably worse this coming season. Not like miss the playoffs worse, but they still will be worse. And as well as that too, it leaves questions for what's to come. First off, let's get into this situation. They're above the salary cap right now. What do you do to get below the salary cap? Well, you could buy out Matt Murray, which is very possible. They could probably do that. You could trade away the Muzzin contract to Arizona, because Arizona, we know, likes taking those contracts. You could trade away Ilya Samsonov, but then you don't have a goalie. You don't have a goalie. So that's another issue. And again, you could trade Matt Murray, but no, not many teams would want Matt Murray really right now. So that's why it's difficult. And I think the most likely scenario is they buy out Matt Murray. That's the only scenario I could see. Even then, though, are they below the cap then? I'm not entirely too sure. I think they are, but I'm not 100% sure. But That's probably the most likely direction they go. They go and buy out Matt Murray. Then they got to sign Samsonov, and then that brings the whole question. But then he put Muzzin on LTIR and all this and that. So it's really complicated, and it's a difficult situation. But what I think will likely happen is Matt Murray gets bought out. I don't see any other way where he doesn't. He may get traded away. That's a possibility, but I can't see any teams taking him. So yeah, that's why Toronto is facing a lot of questions there. Not only that, but when you look into the future, and you do absolutely need to look into the future of your Toronto right now, because arguably your 4 best players are expiring in the next 2 years. 2 of them in 2024 and 2 of them in 2025. First off, in 2024, you got Austin Matthews expiring and William Nylander as well. You got to wonder, are both those players going to want 10 mil? Nylander wants 10 mil. Toronto offered him 8. I think Nylander deserves 10 million because when you look at previous playoff years, and I'm not counting this year because this year everyone was not good in that second round series. When you look at previous playoff series and games that have mattered, Nylander has always been the one that has come up the best. Out of all the players, out of Matthews, Marner, Tavares, all of them, Nylander's been the one that's come up the best, and that is why he's going to want money. He's going to want 10 mil. And I think there are teams out there that will pay him 10 mil. And especially something else you got to factor in too is that with the cap rising, he's 100% going to want that money. So that's another thing you got to factor in. And of course, Matthews is going to want money as well. And I've been hearing rumors that he may want to take less, which is possible. But there's also a possibility that if he goes to the market, he could get as high as 13 million, even higher than that, maybe even. There would be teams that would offer him that money. Absolutely. For a guy who has scored 60 seasons in his career and can score 40, absolutely he'd get offered that money. And then this season too leaves a lot of question because he had that 60-goal season in 21-22. In 22-23 he was hurt, yes, but he barely cracked 40. So that is why there's a lot of questions surrounding what contract Matthews could get. Could it be an 8-year deal? Could it be a bridge deal? We're not entirely too sure. Could it happen soon? It could, but we know a Nylander extension's not close. We know that's not going to be close, and we know that's likely not going to happen until probably closer to the season, and if not that, probably next offseason. So that's why with Toronto, that's the question right now. In 2025, you got Mitch Marner and John Tavares, and I think Tavares goes. I don't see a world where Tavares stays unless if he takes term. He's getting old. He probably goes. And then Mitch Marner, too. I've said this multiple times before on videos. There would be almost every team in the league would want Mitch Marner. Any of my teams would want Mitch Marner. I would want Mitch Marner. Whether on the Flyers or the Coyotes, I would want Mitch Marner, hands down. It's undisputed argument. So that's why they're also going to need to pay him money. It's a big thing. You're good. I think all these players will want at least 10 mil. So that's $30 million right there going towards your players. And you better pray the cap rises significantly by next season. Or by the season afterwards, by 24-25. You better pray the cap rises by $3 million, $4 million, something like that. Like what we've been hearing could happen for the past couple of years now. But now it's not going to probably be that. So, and that's why a lot of players are demanding high-term contracts because the cap is rising. So, again, there's a lot of questions here. Do I think these guys get signed? Yes. Honestly, I can't see a world where these people leave because if these people leave, Toronto will melt down. There's no question. I do think they will stay. Right now, it's just a lot of questions. And honestly, as well as that too, looking at the guys they lost and the guys they brought in, it just gives them even more problems next season or next offseason. So we'll find out. But hey, if they make it all the way to the 3rd round or 4th round or win the Stanley Cup, then we won't have to have this conversation really. These players will get paid, no question, and then Toronto will win the Stanley Cup, and hooray. Everyone's happy. But anyways, let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you all for watching. If you guys did enjoy, make sure to leave a like and subscribe on down below. I really appreciate it. And anyways, I will see you guys in the next video. Adios.